What's up everyone, welcome back here to the Megan Moves channel. I'm very excited for this video today guys because I'm going to be sharing with you a new hobby that I have recently started for myself and one that you can easily start for yourself as well. And that's going to be talking about making yourself your own no-sew mouse ears. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. So the thing I like most about making these ears is that they are super fun and easy to make. There's no sewing involved, they are all hot glued, and they are completely customizable, so you can pick whatever fabric you want and whatever trim you want if you desire. So before we get into how to make these ears, guys, let's go over all the materials that you'll need in order to make these ears. All these materials can either be found online on companies such as Amazon, or you can go to your local sewing store such as Hobby Lobby and Joann's. That's where I usually get all of my materials. But as far as what you're going to need some stuffing. I use Poly-fil brand stuffing. You'll need some cardboard coasters. I love using these cardboard coasters. You can get them on Amazon. They are the perfect shape and size of an ear, which is really great whenever you go to make your ears. You'll need a headband. I usually use adult size headbands when it comes to the headbands that I use, and like I said, you can find those on Amazon. Other materials that you'll need will be listed here. You're going to need fabric for your ears and bow, some trim if you want to cover the seams of your ears, a hot glue gun and hot glue sticks, and some scissors and templates that you can easily find online in order to make and size these ears. All of the templates that I used here in order to make these ears, I did not create on my own. I found them online, so I cannot take credit for them, but they are easy to find, and you can definitely go and Google whatever templates that you decide to use. So the first thing you're going to want to do whenever you go to first make your mouse ears is I usually like to start with the cardboard coasters here. What I like to do is I like to cut out the template for the actual coasters, and I will go in and I will start to cut the bottom out where the ear will actually fit onto the headband. You want to make sure that the fit is right, so that way it will perfectly seal with the headband and that there are no gaps whenever you go to actually glue the headband and the ears together. You'll need 4 cardboard coasters in order to actually make these ears, 1 for each side of the ears, and once you have all of the coasters cut out, it's time to start cutting the fabric. Now, depending on the fabric that you decide to use, the patterns, it might depend on how you want to orient your ear. Since I use stripes, I knew that I wanted the stripes to be up and down. So that's something that you're going to want to consider whenever you actually go to trace out and cut the fabric for your ears. So I typically like to place the template of the ears as close together. I like to trace out all of the ears as close together so that way I can conserve and save as much fabric as possible while still making the ears and the fabric turn out looking very nice. Like you had seen, you will need 4 pieces of fabric for each side of the ears as well, and after you are done cutting out all of your fabric, you will then go and start to glue it onto your cardboard coasters that you had previously cut the bottoms out of. And whenever you go to actually hot glue the fabric to your coasters, you're going to want the bad side of the fabric facing up, and you're going to want to fit the coaster in between and inside centered in your fabric. When it comes to hot gluing the fabric to the coasters, you're not going to want to touch the flat part of the fabric at the bottom of the ear. That's going to be saved till later. What you're going to want to do is start to hot glue outside the rim of the coasters, and then quickly after you use the hot glue, you're going to want to press down the fabric onto the hot glue. Now, it's important that you don't hot glue the outer rim of the coasters all at once because the glue can dry pretty quickly, but about an inch at a time, you're going to want to hot glue and press the fabric down onto the hot glue so that way it dries and you start to form the ear with the fabric. Once you complete gluing one of the ears, you're going to do the same for the rest of the ears, the remainder of them, the rest of the 3 of them. And then after you go to hot glue the fabric to the coaster, you're ready to stuff the ears with Poly-fil or whatever stuffing you decide to use. So when it comes to stuffing your ears won't take a whole ton of stuffing depending on how poofy or how thick you want your ears to be. I typically like to stuff my ears as full as the ear and the fabric will actually allow for, but whenever I go to stuff my ears, I will take some stuffing and I will typically start to pull it apart and kind of fluff the stuffing, and then I will start to push it inside of the ear, and I make sure that it is pushed all the way down into the ear to make sure that all of the rims of the ear are stuffed completely full with stuffing as much as there can be. After you're done stuffing one of the ears and have the desired thickness and poofiness that you want, you can go on and start to fill the remainder of the ears. But after you are done filling all of the ears, you're going to want to take that flat flap that we had talked about, fold it over and hot glue it around the bottom of the ear. So similar to how you hot glued the other parts of the ear, you want to make sure that you do little parts at a time because the hot glue will dry very quickly, and you just want to seal the bottom of the ear to make sure that all of the stuffing stays in and it finishes off the ear. Once all of the ears are stuffed and finished, you'll want to determine which ears you want to be on the front side of the headband and which ears you want to be on the back side of the headband. So what I like to do is I like to lay out all 4 of the ears, all parts of the ears, and I like to look and see which pattern of the ears I like the most that I want to be displayed in the front of the ears. So then I go and I take away those 2 pieces so I know which ones I need to glue to the ones that I want to be on the back. And this next step is optional. What I like to do, it's personal preference. I like to line my ears with some type of trim. In this case, I used a gold rope trim, but you can use a pom-pom trim, ribbon, whatever it is you'd like to do, or you can just go ahead and hot glue the ears together. I like to typically use a trim so that way it covers the seams, especially if you get glue on the ears for whatever reason. It's just a really good way just to cover up and finish off the ears really nicely. But what I like to do as far as the trim goes is before I hot glue both of the ears together, I like to take one of the ends of the trim and I'll go to one side of the bottom of the ears, hot glue the end down, and then run around the rim of the ears to see how much ribbon or how much trim I will need in order to finish off the ears. Once I know how much trim I'll need, I will snip off the trim and I will hot glue the other end to the bottom of the ear, so that way I can go and hot glue the ears together and then hot glue the trim right around the seam of the ears. But when you actually go to hot glue the ears together, you want to make sure that you use a lot of hot glue so that way the ears will stay together. But you also want to make sure that whenever you go to do the hot glue, you want to make sure that you don't get too close to the rim of the ears. That way when you go to press the ear halves together, the hot glue does not come out of the seam. I like to go right around the rim of the fabric that I had hot glued down. That way I know that none of the hot glue will come out whenever I actually press the ears together. So right after the 2 ear halves are put together, I will then go and finish off the trim, and you will just hot glue right around the seam of the ears and then quickly press down on the trim onto the seam so that way it nicely finishes off the ears. The next part of this ear making process is one of the hardest for myself personally, and that is making a handmade bow. Now I have seen on Amazon you can totally go and buy pre-made bows, but I like to make handmade bows just to finish off my ears, but they are one of the harder parts that I have found. Now whenever you go to actually make your bow, you'll need your bow fabric, and what I do is I usually just use a piece of paper to trace out the part of the fabric that I'll need in order to make a bow. You'll need about an 8.5 by 11 sheet of fabric in order to make your bow. So I'll trace out that portion of fabric and then use my roller cutter or scissors to cut it out. Once you have your sheet of fabric for the bow, you want to take the bottom part and you want to orient it first long ways and take the bottom part of the fabric, fold it up about a quarter of the way up the fabric, and then take the top part of the fabric and fold it down so it just overlaps that piece of fabric. So once I make a seam so I know how I want the fabric to be folded, I'll fold the bottom part up the quarter of the way, hot glue it together, and then I'll fold the top part down to overlap the lower part of the fabric, hot glue it together so that way it stays in place. After that, you want to hot glue the ends of the fabric down, so you'll just run a quick line down the ends of the fabric, fold it over so that way it nicely finishes off the edge of the bow. Once you fold both sides down, you'll want to take either ends of the fabric and fold them to meet each other in the middle. After you meet them in the middle and you have a nice little rectangle or square, you want to hot glue those ends down in the middle so that way they will stay in place. After both ends of your fabric piece are hot glued in the middle, it's time to actually make the bow. So what you'll want to do is you want to use an accordion style fold, and you'll just go back and forth like an accordion and you'll start to actually shape the bow. What I like to do is I like to do that accordion so that way I know how the bow is looking, and I will pinch it in the middle so that way it creates a seam. After you have the seams and you know where all the folds are, I like to go back and use the hot glue gun and actually hot glue all of the seams together. I found that this is the best way that I can make my bows symmetrical after a lot of trial and error. Like I said, this is the hardest part that I have found personally in this ear making process, but this is what has worked best for me. Whenever I go and I actually make the folds, then go ahead one at a time and start to hot glue the pieces of the folds together to make your bow. Once your bow is made, you will need a piece of fabric to finish off the middle of the bow. What I like to do is I usually use about a 3-inch long piece of fabric to go in the center of the bow. I will typically use the fabric and I will roll it around the bow to see how long I will actually need. Depending on how thick your bow actually is or how big it is, you might need a different size piece of fabric, but honestly you can just eyeball how long of a piece that you'll need. Once you have your piece of fabric, you'll want to hot glue the edges down so that way the edges are finished off and you don't see any of the ends of the fabric. Simply hot glue the edges down like usual, use small segments at a time and press the fabric down onto the hot glue so that way it is quickly and easily secured. After doing that, you will have your middle segment to finish off the middle of your bow. And what I do is I usually put a little line of hot glue at the bottom part of your bow. Then I'll stick one end of the fabric onto that hot glue and I will rope it around or line it around the middle of the bow and hot glue it on the other side to finish off the bow. Once you do that, you'll see that some of your fabric might be sticking out and you don't want that visible whenever you actually have it on your ears. So what I'll do is I'll try to peel away the glue a little bit and then go in with my scissors and I will cut off the fabric or the excess fabric so that way you won't see it whenever it is actually hot glued onto your headband. So at this point, all components of your ears are made. There was no sewing involved. It was all hot gluing, and now comes the fun part. So what you can do is you can use an ear spacing template to know where you want to position your ears and your bow on your headband. I usually lay the ears down and see how I want them to be spaced, and then I'll take a pen and I will just go and mark where I want the top corner of the ears to be at. And then I'll flip the headband around and I will then go and hot glue the bottom of the ear to the headband. Whenever I hot glue the ears to the headband, I usually only use 2 runs of hot glue. I usually don't use a whole ton because whenever you go and actually put it onto your headband, you don't want any of the hot glue to squish out and it will be visible whenever you have the ear on your headband. So you want to be really careful whenever you go to actually put your ears onto your headband, but make sure whenever you do that you press it on there and that you hold it very tightly so that way you get a very secure seal between your headband and your ears. Once you do that for both sides of your ears on your headband, it's time to add the finishing touch, and the last part is your bow. When adding the bow, I like to put the headband down with both of the mouse ears, and I like to set the bow into the middle to see how I want it spaced, making sure that it is as centered as possible. And then I will use a pen and I will mark out where the middle of the bow is at, and I will take the bow, put a little dab of glue on the bottom, and then nicely secure it to the top of the headband. And that's it. That's all it takes in order to make your very own pair of no-sew mouse ears. They're so fun and easy to make, and that's all that it takes in order to make your very own pair of no-sew mouse ears. They're so fun and easy to make, and I love that you're able to actually customize them and make them whatever fabric choice that you want. So hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and comment below if you're going to think about making your very own pair of mouse ears, or if you have had the chance to make your very own mouse ears in the past. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope this video was helpful for you and that you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more ear making tips and live streams that I decide to do, and we'll see you next time.